rising cost of living for Australians is currently a major concern, particularly for those least able to protect themselves. With the June quarter 2022 annual inflation rate of 6.1% per annum, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, most are feeling the pinch, and many require further assistance to maintain a fairly basic lifestyle. While not downplaying the economic pain that rapidly increasing prices are causing, this video examines how Australia fares relatively in terms of both cost of living and quality of life. It's not strictly a personal finance video, but provides some international perspective to our situation. The data that I intend to share with you in this video comes from a website called Numbeo, established by an ex-Google employee in 2009. Numbeo collects and analyses cost of living, property and quality of life data from over 10,000 cities around the world. It relies on the thousands of users of the site to update the data, taking advantage of what is called the wisdom of crowds. For some cities, data is sparse, but cost of living and quality of life indices are available for 510 and 248 cities, respectively. While there may be some flaws in the methodology used, my experience is that the data provided is reasonably accurate for cities that I am familiar with. When prices move very quickly, it's likely that there will be a lag in the reported data as older inputs are gradually replaced with updated information. However, taking the Numbeo reporting at face value provides a relative view of the cost of living and quality of life in Australia's major cities that's at odds both with the general negativity of the mainstream media and how, I suspect, the average Australian perceives things. Hi, I'm John Lesky, recently retired personal financial advisor and founder of Fin Health, a tool to guide you to your financial independence. First, the table now shown provides cost of living indices for 8 of Australia's major cities as at mid-2022 and as reported by Numbeo. All the indices are relative to New York, which measures 100 on each index in the table. As an example of how to read the table, the cost of living index for Sydney is 76.63, suggesting the cost of living in Sydney is 23.37%, that is 100 minus 76.63, less than in New York. The cost of living index is calculated based on user price inputs for various consumer goods and services, excluding rent. If you're interested, the basket of goods used to calculate the indices is provided by Numbeo. Unsurprisingly, Sydney is the most expensive city in Australia, but only 11% more costly than the cheapest, the Gold Coast. However, when the cost of renting is also included in the cost of living plus rent index, Sydney is 22% more expensive than the Gold Coast. Sydney's rents are significantly higher, in the order of 35 to 40% higher than any other Australian city. But on a cost of living plus rent basis, Sydney is a massive 36% cheaper than New York, the second most expensive city in the world, according to Numbeo. Sydney ranks 46 on this measure out of a total of 510 cities. In case you're wondering, the most expensive city in the world is Hamilton, in Bermuda. It's 22.9% more expensive than New York and a whopping 60.3% more expensive than Sydney. Clearly, not the place to go for a cheap holiday. Subcategories of the cost of living index, the groceries index and the restaurant price index are also provided in the table. Melbourne is the most expensive city for groceries, with the Gold Coast the cheapest. while Perth is the most expensive for restaurants, with the Gold Coast again the cheapest. The final column in the table, the local purchasing power index, calculates relative purchasing power in buying goods and services for each city, for the average net salary in that city. It's an attempt to capture how far your money goes in each city, and arguably a better measure of general affordability than cost of living indices. So, with Sydney at 114.62 and New York at 100, the average after-tax salary in Sydney buys 14.62% more goods and services than the average after-tax salary in New York. Canberra has the highest level of local purchasing power of the Australian cities, reflecting the high average salaries but middle of the road cost of living. Melbourne has the lowest level of local purchasing power. All Australian cities rank in the top 16% of 510 cities on this measure, with Canberra ranking highest at 13th. Next, we examine Numbeo's findings on quality of life. The table on the screen ranks six major Australian cities in a total population of 248 international cities for which data is available. New York's data is provided for comparison. The Quality of Life Index, the third column from the left, is calculated using a mathematical formula that combines and weights the scores on each of the other indices provided in the table that are regarded as indicators of the quality of life. Of course, the relevance, weightings and validity of the indicators used to determine the Quality of Life Index could be debated endlessly. Please visit the Numbeo website for more information on the methodology. However, taking all the data at face value, clearly Australian cities rank very highly in terms of quality of life, with Canberra and Adelaide ranking number 1 and 2 respectively. As a country, Australia is ranked 4th on this index, marginally behind Switzerland, Denmark and the Netherlands. Sydney and Melbourne's lower scores, compared with other Australian cities, are largely the result of higher house prices, perceived longer commute times and higher pollution. Somewhat surprising to me, both Melbourne and Perth rate lower on perceived safety, that is, as perceived by survey respondents. But on every measure, except housing prices for Sydney, the Australian cities rank more highly on each quality of life input index than does New York. As a country, the United States ranks 18th out of a total of 87 countries. The Numbeo data, based on the independent inputs and perceptions of its thousands of users, suggests that Australia remains the lucky country, both with the country as a whole and its major cities ranking highly on purchasing power and quality of life. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day negativity that the media feeds off. Plus, there are many people in Australia who are doing it genuinely tough. However, a conclusion from the Numbeo data is that, given you have to live somewhere, relatively, Australians are well off and enjoy a high living standard. Knowing this, it may provide some bigger picture perspective to the ongoing personal finance issues that you may be facing. Finally, I'd encourage you to explore the Numbeo website for yourself. While inputs to the site are certainly open to abuse, and the methodologies for calculating the various indices arguable, the results reasonably match my admittedly limited anecdotal experience. Hopefully, you found this video of interest. I'd like to know what you think. Please provide any comments or questions below. Finally, thanks for watching.